Welcome to another episode of Human Alchemy. I'm your host, Lucy Antrobus, and today we are going to be exploring a way to pump up your powers of self-expression. It seems fairly topical differentiating our human qualities in a world of automation and artificial intelligence at the moment. So in this episode, we're going to explore ways that you can increase your capacity of self-expression, the unexpected benefits this brings, and different ways that you can try these on in your own home environment. So to begin, one of the reasons I care about these tools is they are an accessible means for anyone to tap into their power, no matter your background or the resources available to you. They are super simple and yet can have a profound and lasting effect. One of my nicknames for this specific set of tools is the Three Musketeers, since these are tools of expression that all have their own personalities and are cheeky in their own ways. We'll get into the how of that. They are super cool because the impact of how we communicate is attributed to 70% because of how we say it and only 30% of what we actually say. Or in some cases, it's believed to be up to 93% of how we say it. And these tools of expression tackle, therefore, the sweet spot of how you say it for smart growth in your expressive abilities. Before I dive into what they are specifically and give some practical examples, I want to briefly mention the top benefits of using them and how they can be empowering in addition to amplifying your communication abilities. Top 3 benefits are, number 1, they increase our presence. That is presence both in the sense of stage presence and how we influence people, and also our capacity to be present in the present moment, aka in our body, mind, spirit, with those around us. And that can help unlock connection with others and reduce our mental noise. Number 2, they help us uncover blind spots in how we communicate and how we can nimbly up-level our communication to deliver with greater impact. And that's areas that, without breaking them down, we would not really be able to identify so specifically where the growth opportunity is for us personally. And then number 3, they help us become both conscious of and provide lubrication to overcoming resistance we might possess in our minds and in our bodies in expressing ourselves authentically and therefore powerfully. We'll get more into these and to practice later. Let me briefly share one story of when these have been put to powerful use amongst many different ones I could choose from. So amongst many other examples, one story I have for you is about a gentleman named Morteza. And when he unlocked his powers of expression to take to the stage at the Royal Opera House in Geneva, or otherwise known as the Grand Théâtre de Genève in Geneva, Switzerland. Theatre feels like a fitting sense or fitting setting to uncover one's power of speech and expression and to take command of one's voice and story. Morteza was a large man in his early 50s with rounded, plump features, rosy cheeks, and a kind but weary face. He had come from a long lineage of poets and creatives, so artistry was in his blood, you could say. Yet somehow he seemed to blend into the background of groups and rooms, was incredibly tentative about speaking, and waiting to be called upon as the last of the group rather than volunteering himself. His creativity and joie de vivre seemed to be sapped from him. He was a political exile from Turkey and had been forced to flee his native country and leave all of his family behind due to expressed dissent against the government. With that came the isolation and disconnection which comes from being in a new place, without kin, community, or connections to share your burden of pain with, and that of a consuming sense of loneliness. This pain and this isolation, for the time being, was his price of freedom. Now, after running through the Three Musketeers, he felt liberation, he felt joy, and he felt peace. Libération, joie, paix. Je me sens libéré, he said, which literally translates to, I feel myself liberated. This in contrast to how for months and years he had been in fear and reduced himself due to this censorship of his expression. That played out in his body and his freeness in embodying space. And somehow these very simple tools had a mighty effect upon this mighty man. Fast forward, and within a few weeks he had delivered poetry to a crowd gathered at the Grand Théâtre de Genève, the Grand Theatre of Geneva, creating an electric resonance across the crowd with his bravery, his authenticity, and the embodiment of what he had become. Interestingly here is that these tools unlock not only his capacity to express himself once more in a safe environment, but moreover, they enabled him to refocus on what was in his zone of control. How he breathed, how he moved, and what he put into the world in the form of words, emotional expression, and poetry. Simple, yet profound. All of this in comparison to things that had been swirling around his mind that were out of his direct control, like political unrest, government administrations, speeds of administrative systems, prison riots, fighting and civil unrest. So in using these tools, Morteza has not been the only one who's benefited. And he's not the only person who's suffered from challenging global events and who carries things and worries about things that are outside of their present control. A shift in focus or mindset can also be empowering if you're a business leader, a technologist, an artist, or an entrepreneur, amongst others, to focus on what is in your zone of control and then take actionable steps to get there and to progress. This can leave us all feeling more empowered. And when I say empowered, I mean literally empowered to bring power upon us, like the Latin roots of the word. These tools are the muscles of expression. And by isolating them and nurturing them first as individual muscles, then collectively, you can rapidly foster progress in how you communicate and connect with others. Furthermore, it's powerful to break them down as you can work on them more individually and easily than when they are all packaged together. Like how an orchestra can rehearse with its individual instrument families or string groups, such as the violins, the violas, the cellos, the double bass, to sharpen their individual contributions before bringing them back all together with the brass, the woodwind, the percussion, etc. By breaking them down, they can also feel more approachable and easier for you to focus on one thing at a time and feel the sense of progress. This sense of progress is also critical to giving you the juju or the energy, the motivation to continue. What are they? Number 1, the body. Number 2, the voice. And number 3, the emotions. Okay, well, so how do we activate them? Well, there are a few phases or stages to this process, but the first thing, number 1, is awareness. Number 2 is testing and experimentation. Lots of fun to be had there. Number 3 is stretching, so expanding our zone of comfort. And then number 4 is iteration or liberation. And in some cases, laughter. When you do some of these things in a group setting, we can feel very self-conscious, then we can feel silly, and then we can start to collectively laugh and realize how seriously we can sometimes take ourselves. And that these can be a means of lighting up and getting out of our heads and into our bodies and becoming really present in that present moment. So I'm going to give you a few little examples of how we can break it down in the terms of the categories, though, of the bodies, beginning with the body. The body is wonderful because, amongst other things, motion or movement generates emotion. So it can help liberate our thinking and it can help liberate kind of our emotional capacities and reconnect with the present moment by some movement. So different ways this can be done. This can be done by a simple thing such as stretching. So one of my favorite is what I call the giant starfish. We go from the giant starfish and then we close right up and down. You can shrink all the way down to the ground if you want to. Disappear off camera, and that will be the tiny clam. So you're connecting to this difference between this expansiveness with the giant starfish and then this contraction and closed space with the tiny clam, and see Do you feel comfortable in these two positions? Which feel more powerful? Where do you feel like there's some stretch happening in your body? And what kind of space are you used to taking up? So that's one example. Other ways of doing it can be simple types of stretching. This can also have a wonderful effect on relaxing the vagus nerve and in the body. You can stretch your arms, you can stretch one side or the other, you can stretch your legs. Doing stretching, again, helps us bring that presence and reconnect with what muscles are we using and what muscles are we not using, and the ways that we take up space. A third way in terms of connecting to the body can also just be through touch, through touching our earlobes, for instance, seeing what that activates, touching our cheeks, our dimples. We can scratch or touch our head. Is that going to bring, what does that raise or feeling sensation for us? And going in different areas of the body and squeezing, tapping, shaking, this can all bring this greater sense of presence and loosen us up. So that's the awareness building and also loosening up the lubrification part. Dancing is also another fantastic area where we can feel a little bit rigid or timid in the beginning. And as we start to loosen up more, then we got more free with it. We start to take more space more easily. And if you're able to then dance in an empty room or dance in front of a group of people easily, then just coming back and having a conversation and taking up full space or delivering a public talk can feel relatively easy once you've stretched yourself outside of your usual zone of comfort. So that's on the body. Number 2, we'll go to the voice. And the voice has these different elements or layers to it. One of those elements is just starting quite simply with the breath. And in order to project far, we tend to need to take in a good lungful, airful of energy to be able to do that. Now, there's lots of different breathing exercises that you can do when you, for example, inhale for, let's say, a count of 4, and you exhale for a count of 8. As long as the exhale is longer than the inhale, then that can have a wonderful restorative and calming effect on our vagus nerve. And that can also be just empowering and grounding in recognizing and creating increased consciousness of how are we breathing, because the breathing then forms the basis of how we can express ourselves through our voice. So we'll do one little test or maybe 2 together, and we'll go after 3, 2, 1 in. Hold it, stop. And then 3, 2, 1 out. So one extra. So that doing that several times, you can pause this, you can try that again, can help bring a sense of calm and just reconnect to how we're breathing and how easy that is, how not that is. Maybe the swimmers out there or the singers out there will have a good sense of that for that. Now, stretching a little bit further on top of just the breathing, well, there's breathing and then we want to layer our voice on top of that. So in layering our voice on top of that, leveraging the breathing, we can also get a sense of how easily we can project by a lovely little exercise I call the ha-ha-has. So if we breathe all in, we hold and we can take your hand and put it on your tummy, on your diaphragm. And then as you exhale, instead of just breathing, I want you to push out with the sound of a ha, like you're laughing. Ha! And as you do that, if you feel the squeeze on your diaphragm and push your hand for your diaphragm muscles, you can feel a sense of ha, and expansion and contraction down there. So you can do that a few times. We'll go in a second time. And out, ha, ha. And then one more time, we'll go in. And out, ha, ha, ha. And just practicing this, doing this can make ourselves feel less easily. If we're a bit conscious of the noise we're making, we can practice like charging through that inner resistance and saying, can we get loose? Can we feel okay? And less self-conscious with taking up space in our voices. And that's about voice. And there's really lots of other lovely creative ways to play with this, with our voice, and also in vis-a-vis articulation. So there's things called, I would call in French, mâcher un bonbon, or to chew a bonbon, chew a sweetie, a caramel, where you can be like imagining you're chewing this thing and you're really going to really get these muscles around your cheeks really, really warm by doing that and going, and doing that, you can really get a sense of, are you active and aware of the muscles around your jaw? And you can do other little more crazy things, like amazing, crazy shapes, sounds, and noises by stretching your face in different directions. So one way to stretch it would be with a ooh and making an ooh sound, which can be something like ooh, stretching your face muscles as you do it, and also pushing the air out. Ooh, a bit like a monkey. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Another way then can be pulling it in the opposite direction with an E sound. So you're showing those lovely pearly whites, giving a big smile, and making an E sound out of it. E, and just pulling that sound out. E, and stretching your face at the same time. And to contrast that, another thing you can do with a big, wide open mouth is give an ah sound. So while we're doing this simultaneously, we are opening up kind of our gorge, our throat, and letting the air flow out through our vocal box. And also we're stretching different ways of how we articulate and use our mouth so that it becomes then easy to articulate ourselves nice and clearly in other contexts. So the last one is kind of shape. Again, we can feel silly, but that's almost intention part of the process. If we feel silly now in doing these ridiculous things, then when we're just communicating normally, but with this expanded sense of self-expression, it can feel much more easeful or more connected to our comfort zone. So that's on the second, on the voice. And the third one, perhaps the most fun, is testing our emotional range in this experimental, playful, and safe environment type of way. So with the emotions. And I, again, like to test extremes, and because that helps us stretch our comfort zone and feel more comfortable in areas that we might feel a little bit of resistance in our bodies that we can normalize and embrace more and more easily our expression. So on the muscles of expression, on the emotional side of things, we can play with this by practicing a few emotions in isolation. And then we can see, are we connecting with how we feel inside and being able to manifest that in our emotions externally? So if we imagine we were doing a public talk or something and we want to generate that kind of tension or sadness or joy, are we able to, through the words that we're saying and how we say them, create that resonance with those emotions? So by isolating and practicing these emotions separately, this can help us give a sense of where are the growth areas for us and where are we already kind of hitting that emotional resonance strongly, spot on. So to give an example for this, one quite a fun one to start with is something like surprise, where you can literally just, for example, in front of your mirror, practice manifesting a sort of sense of surprise and expression on your face. So you're stretching your face muscles at the same time as maybe making some sounds and showing up with body posture that manifests this emotion, so that you're connecting your emotion with your voice and your body, and you're helping your music and your dance, or how you sound and how you express that through your body, to match what you're saying. And I believe people can be the most powerful when how they say, or the things that they are saying, is manifested in the way that they say them, because as other human beings, that becomes extra believable. So when they manifest it with that emotion or that intensity through how they say it, the words gain more power. And that's what can help you level up your public speaking game, as well as just expressing authentically. So back to the emotions. So something can be like surprise. So we can do kind of 3, 2, 1, surprise. And you can play with that a few times, iterate it, see what's working, see where you're feeling resistance, and that will help you kind of play around with it and find your authentic, your particular color or style of surprise. Similarly, you can do that also with like anger or with joy, and keep stretching these different zones. I will leave anger and joy out for today, but I might give you some more flavor of where they can come from in a future episode, and we could dig more deeply into them. So that's sort of a wrap on the muscles of expression. Super, super simple, yet super powerful. Embracing that silliness is part of the package. And in terms of context, I've done this with so many varieties of people, from young women in Kenya who are getting education to avoid becoming a child bride. So that's one kind of social setting in Africa, for example. I've done this in Asia with teachers in training, educators in Myanmar, originally Burma, to grow their confidence and to help connect to the communities they serve. I've done this with CEOs of AI and technology companies, which can help them reduce their kind of sense of stiffness and reconnect to their body, as well as all the technical work that they're doing. And I've done this at global conferences as icebreakers and many, many more. So they're really cool kind of context and setting that no matter what people's background, I find that coming back to ourselves, reminding ourselves of these simple mechanisms we have and we use every day, isolating them and then practicing can be a really powerful means to sharpen how we choose to show up and express ourselves authentically. A few little reflective questions for you then is, in doing these, which muscle type did you feel the most resistance to trying in hearing about them or testing them out? Number one. Number two, what is an example of something particular that you haven't tried before? Was it testing the emotions? Was it playing with your voice box? Or was it kind of, dancing, potentially having a solo dance party? That's number two. And number three, what is one example that you could potentially test or share with a friend? And to give you a little recap of items you might take away to practice, number one, from the body, you can do the giant starfish to the baby clam. Feel those differences. You can do a little buoy on the spot. You can, when you connect to the voice, do the deep breathing exercise with the longer exhale and the shorter inhale. You can do chewing a sweetie, a candy, and articulating your jaw. You can do the ha-ha-has and see if you can get a whole group laughing. And you can do things with your emotions of practicing and testing through your facial expression, how you can come up with different extremes, such as joy, such as anger, and such as surprise. And you can also even integrate a few little funky props in there. You can use a pencil and put it in your mouth to keep yourself smiling. That's another hack to make yourself feel better in using the body to hack into the mind. You can lots of other examples or ideas that you can use, or integrating props to make it playful, integrating music to get yourself in the flow. So those are different ways that you can try or test back at home. And as a summary, so we've explored here how we can pump up our powers of expression, the unexpected benefits of this set of tools, and an example back with Morteza of how this led to immense growth and taking to the stage, simple yet powerful, and why these are pretty cool and to be inspiring to do no matter what your background. And to close, I would just say, I hope you enjoyed this more fun, playful episode today. Let me know what was your favorite part and what you want to hear more of. As usual, please share with one friend who may find value in it. Wishing you lots of fun and creativity into tapping into your own personal muscles of expression. Thank you, and I'll see you next time on Human Alchemy.